Hello everyone, nubkeks here, and welcome back to Nub Star Rail. In today's video, it's the second video ever on the channel. I want to give my perspective as a new player to the game, coming in as a low spend. So I'm doing the monthly pass, the battle pass, right? What do I think of Luocha? Because this one it's something that's really interesting to me, because trying to research and learn as much as I can about the game as a new player. Fascinating to see videos from even just a few months ago, 3, 4, 5 months ago, saying like Luocha is one of the best characters in the game. He's a must pull. The videos that have come out now saying, Luocha is definitely a skip, totally power crept, he's useless. I just think that's an interesting thing to see. So I wanted to dive into it and try to figure it out myself and figure out what actually is going on and what's the right take for this. And I can tell you right now, spoiler warning, I think the rumors of Luocha's demise are vastly exaggerated. I think he's still an amazing character. However, as a new player, for a couple of big reasons, I personally am not going to go for him, though. Interesting. But so we'll break it down. Explain the two sides to it. Let's go. Yeah, let's go. Let's throw him into a fight here. I'm actually not sure if this will work because our team is underpowered. I think we might be fine. I don't know. I usually just throw in. I steal someone's like Don Hung, Imbibitor, Lune for this. So we'll see. We'll throw him into our team and we'll throw in a support. One of my friends here has Luocha as a support, so let's throw Luocha in. We can actually see the details on Luocha. What does he do, basically? Well, his A1 just does some damage. His talent is the big thing. Whenever he uses his skill or his ultimate, he gets a stack of Abyss Flower. At 2 stacks, he deploys this Abyss Flower field. And whenever anyone attacks those enemies, while the field is up, it will immediately heal the ally. And in fact, it will also heal with the traces. It will heal your whole team. So he essentially provides you with a ton of really consistent healing. Every time someone attacks, the whole team is healed. So the more attacks you have, the more you're healed. And it's just a ton of healing overall. His skill is a single target nuke heal, basically massive heal, really big. That will also remove debuffs from the target as well. One debuff from the target. Really interesting thing about this is you get a free usage of this skill when an ally's HP goes below 50%. It has a 2-turn cooldown, but for free, no skill point cost, you get to cast the skill, which is super cool. And it's part of what makes Luocha really strong, actually, is that he doesn't need to use his skill very much. You get the free cast if somebody, one person drops really low. You're getting a ton of healing from using your ultimate and the free cast of the skill, and then from the fields deploying by casting those to get the stacks for the field. He gets a ton of healing without needing necessarily to spend skill points. So he's very skill point positive. And then he's got a low cost ultimate, which is part of this as well, which removes a buff from all enemies and does AoE imaginary damage, giving him the stack of Abyss Flower. That's the basic thing. Let's jump into a fight so we can see him in the fight and see how he does. Can he keep my underpowered team alive here? I mean, he's more powerful than he needs to be probably for this level. And let's put it on auto. He's faster than my Ting Yun and my Sparkle because embarrassingly I haven't so new to the game I haven't farmed any relics basically. Let's go in. Let's see how he does, and then we'll talk about what he's good. I thought it'd be just nice so you guys can see him again. You can see here in the bottom right he's got the 2 stacks. There we go. He's healed her up, I think, automatically. Now it's back to his turn. He's going to do another direct heal and he's deploying the field. Possibly he didn't need to do that direct heal. We could have manualed it, but it's fine. And he's sort of healing us all up. In fact, let me flip me up higher so we can see everyone's skill bar and track all of that. That should be kind of fun to see. Like I said, we might easily lose this. We'll find out. But you can see every time anyone is attacking, building up the stuff. So, what are the strengths of Luocha? Oh, yeah, poor old Jing Yuan. He's getting beat up. Luocha's like full heals him. Just like that. Cool. What are the strengths of Luocha? Well, he just does a ton of healing. I think that's a really big deal. He can also be skill point positive. That's very helpful. He does a good... He won't do that much actual damage, but what he will do... You can see we even get this follow-up attack and people get healed. What he will do is quite a lot of break damage to imaginary enemies in particular. And with a low-cost ultimate, again, he can do that quite a bit even in AoE, which is quite strong. So he's going to do good imaginary break damage, like you can see there against the boss. It's going to add up, particularly if your team isn't underpowered and you don't need to have him actually using his A2 actively all that much. Then you're going to be fine, and you're going to save some more skill points. So there's that. Skill point positive, good imaginary break damage, like a little bit of okay sort of supplementary damage as well, and just tons of healing. I think he also, like we said, he works really well with follow-up attack. And he's going to work well with characters that have extra turns as well, right? The more turns you take, the more times you attack, the more times you activate Luocha's healing, which is cool. It does seem, at least right now in the game, that there's not a ton of places where the removing buffs is incredibly useful. It's nice to have, particularly for some of the enemies, like the Luofu enemies, but it seems that it's not a big thing in the game at the moment, but it could become a bigger thing in the future. Like, you never know. You know, he does A1 there and healed himself up an absolute ton. That's sort of what's going on there. Now, we might die horribly here. Almost definitely. Let me actually pause the battle and we'll come back to it, because what I want to dive into is this sort of stuff, actually. A couple of stats that I was whipping up that I was curious to see. So in particular, one thing I wanted to do was look at this question of, is Luocha being completely power crapped by the other sustains? Well, how much are they actually being used? So I took the notes on this a couple of days ago, so I think it's actually changed since then. But let me show you what I did. I basically went into stage 12 of the current Memory of Chaos. That's 2.0.2. I went through and I just wrote down like all of the sustains for each side, how much they were showing up total. Like I said, it's probably changed by now, and you can go in and add it up. But what I found was really interesting. So when I looked at it the last time, right, on substage 1, the left side of MOC1, Luocha was actually tied with Fu Xuan for the most used sustain. Huahua was quite a bit behind Lynx and Bailu, and a little bit of Japard, one Japard. Substage 2, that was the other side. Fu Xuan was by far the highest, then Huahua. Luocha was still there, but not as much. Japard actually in a good chunk. Bailu, and then Lynx. I actually added those together across the both sides. Fu Xuan definitely coming in as the number 1 choice, but Luocha was actually number 2. Again, this is the current MOC. So I'm looking at this and going, like, I'm seeing people telling me that you would never pull for Luocha, that he's terrible, completely power crap by these other sustains. I'm going, well, it doesn't look to me like he's been completely power crapped. Doesn't seem to me that he's been completely power crapped. It doesn't. Yeah, like here we go. We can see, you know, this is a good example. I think Huahua is considered to be particularly good for this dot team comp because she provides them with attack, right? So she's buffing up their attack. Rank 2, Luocha is working in that same team just fine. It's rank 2. Like, it's not as good, but it's not crazy far behind. The average cycle 7.8 versus 7.2. So yeah, she's slightly better, but is this a game-breaking thing? Not really. It's certainly not the case that, you know, Huahua is a 10 out of 10 and Luocha is a 0 out of 10. Like, that's really absurd. It's like, if she's a 10 out of 10, like, he's 9.5. You know, arguably, it's so close that he could be a 10 out of 10 as well. It's pretty interesting. I think that the types of characters he's going to synergize with as well, in particular, I do think because of his SP positivity and the sort of constant healing, I think he's going to work particularly well with basic destruction characters. So I think he works really well with Blade. I think that he's likely to be really good with Jing Liu. Really good if you run like a double DPS comp like Blade and Jing Liu. I think anything like that he's going to be quite strong with. And I think he works really well with Bronya as well, again, because of that SP positivity. That's going to make it kind of an easier comp to run because he's going to be generating quite a lot of SP and making it work. I think we can actually see that if we go to his stats, we can actually see his usage rate in MOC and in Pure Fiction. He's one of the most used characters in both modes. Common partners for MOC. Again, we've got Blade is really common, even Dan Heng. Dan Heng's destruction, he doesn't have HP loss and need the healing like Blade and Jing Liu do, but he's so SP hungry. I guess that's a nice combo. He's very common with Bronya. Ron May, obviously very strong. And then in Pure Fiction, he's run there as well and can be really, really good. So, yeah, It's not like he's not being run, honestly. I think he's very strong. Now, why would let's click continue battle. So there we go. There are reasons to pull for him. You like the characters, the most important thing is the number one, but he's got a good single target cleanse, good healing, he's used a ton. He doesn't provide offensive buffs in the same way that Fu Xuan does. Fu Xuan definitely stands out to me looking at the stats as being the best sustain. She's the one that's used the most with most success. Fu Xuan looks to be the best. Reason being, she brings you crowd control protection, very consistent crowd control protection, and she also boosts your crit rate a little bit, which is nice. Huahua has a lot of cleansing, and she can also restore energy for you and give you an attack boost. But I don't think that's a massive deal. Certainly, it's not like it totally eclipses the other stuff. I think that the crowd control protection from Fu Xuan seems to me to be the number one thing. Well, there's another part of it as well. Let's go into it. Why would I consider not building or not going for Luocha when I'm talking him up so much? What's going on? Tell me about it. Break it down. Well, here's why. Two reasons that tie in together, basically, as a new player. Actually, even three reasons tying in as a new player. So, number one, I think in terms of the competition, you look at preservation and abundance. And I think they're two sides of a similar coin, which is this idea we want to keep our team alive. Abundance does it by healing. Preservation mostly does it by preventing damage with things like shields, or the damage reduction and redirection of Fu Xuan. Reducing damage, shielding, is, I think, generally in games, is better than healing stuff up because you're much likely to less likely to be one shot. Like right here, you can see in this run, like there's a few times our health has dropped pretty low. Our characters could potentially, just get one shot by a really powerful enemy. Now, if we were in with a character that's providing tons of shielding or Fu Xuan with the damage reduction and redirection, the ability for us to get one shot is much less. The downside of preservation is that, well, when damage does go onto the team, right, you can put more shields on top of it, but you don't really have a way to get that health back all that effectively. So if they start smashing through, if you take a lot of damage, you can't necessarily get it back the way an abundance character could. Here we go. So this is pretty nice from Luocha, actually. He had 0 stacks in his Abyss Flower, gets the auto heal, gets his ultimate, the Abyss field is up, and then my team is pretty slow, so that's a bit of a weakness, but once some hits start coming in, the team starts to get healed up again, and we can potentially start to come back into it a little bit. Again, we could manual it and have him not use his skill so much, but it's not too important. But that's a big deal. So preservation is nice to have. I actually think as a new player, it's probably a really good idea because you ideally want to have the 2 solo sustains, one for each side of Memory of Chaos, one for each side of Pure Fiction. Building extra sustain characters doesn't seem to be that useful, and perhaps that's part of why we're seeing as well a lot of Luocha and not as much Huahua. Is that probably, these are people that are climbing the rankings in MOC, right? These are the players with the strongest accounts in the game and the best players. A lot of them probably got Luocha when the game came out and then didn't need to go for Huahua. Even if she might be, in theory, a bit better for some of these teams, they didn't need to go for her because, again, the difference between these characters isn't that big, really. Ultimately, it's not that big. Yeah. You obviously need 2 of these characters. I think it's a really good idea to have one abundance and one preservation. Or another way to put it is, if you've got a really good abundance character, you don't necessarily need another one. It might be better, more flexible for you to have a really good preservation instead. And when I look at the free characters in particular, this is kind of a deciding factor for me to not go for the abundance option in Luocha. Because, like, if I look at my characters, for me personally, I have a Bailu. I actually personally got an E1 Bailu because she's the one who's popped out of all my banners so far. You also get a Lynx for free as well. You get a free copy from Pure Fiction. I'm probably going to get a free copy of Lynx as well from the free selector here in 2.1. But Lynx is, again, we saw her come up in these, right? Lynx, she's not as good. She's not as good as these other ones, but she is capable. She's certainly viable. And so is Bailu. You've got a couple of good options there. I don't have a Japard, but Japard, Bailu are both your standard banner 5 stars. So, depending, if you've got Japard, Okay, maybe your preservation is locked in. All right, in that case, cool. An abundance character becomes more valuable for a new player. But if you've got Lynx or Bailu and everyone gets Lynx, then a preservation card, and you don't have Japard, a preservation becomes much more appealing because we do have obviously the Fire Trailblazer, but it's not that good really. And March 7th as well, they're much more niche. They're not really gonna be solo sustaining, a new player's team, I think, anytime soon. Let me put it like that. I think for a new player like me, I don't think I'm going to be solo sustaining with the accessible preservation units anytime soon. I think you really need the limited edition ones. Whereas Lynx, Gallagher, perhaps, but certainly Lynx and Bailu, I think they can do the job. So that's where I'm going. For me, I've got a Lynx and a Bailu. I'm feeling okay with abundance, but I want some preservation. And what do we have coming up? Gone to the wrong thing. What do we have coming up very soon? Obviously in 2.1, and this is the other final thing, we have an Aventurine. Solo sustain, but preservation. And interestingly enough, also imaginary. He's the imaginary element as well, the same as Luocha. So you're getting the similar break value, arguably more because Aventurine has got his follow-up attacks, and he's going to be doing quite a bit of, I think, actual damage, a decent chunk of actual damage. And he's going to be doing a good chunk of break damage as well. Or toughness damage, I think is more accurate to say. So you've got that. And he looks to be very strong. You can, you play him a bit in the storyline at the moment, and yeah, he puts out really good big shields. He's powerful. This is another thing, right? Every new player at the moment has, guess what? A free doctor ratio. I need to build up mine more. He's looking a bit miserable compared to Jing Yuan, stole most of his gear. But you get a free doctor ratio, who is a follow-up character. Herta is a follow-up character. You can actually now get 5 of Herta's Eidolons from, I don't think I've done the new world yet. No, you get 5 of her Eidolons from Simulated Universe, a follow-up character for AoE. That's a really strong synergy with Aventurine. Funny enough, it's a good synergy, like I said, with Luocha as well. He heals more with the follow-up character, so he actually likes that a lot. But I think building into the follow-up thing, if you like Dr. Ratio, I think going for Aventurine makes more sense. That's my new player perspective on it, basically. For me, I've actually skipped Acheron because I got Jing Yuan, so I'm skipping Acheron, and I'm going for Aventurine instead. And then maybe looking forward, maybe going for Robin, potentially, as well. So yeah, that's sort of my theory on that is... Yeah, I think Luocha, I think he's still really, really solid. He's still really good, but you've got a lot of good, free, accessible abundance units. The free, accessible preservation are not so strong, and Aventurine is coming in only, well, about 20 days now. I think I personally, as a newer player, I'd rather have Aventurine to build into, if you like follow-up teams, if you like the character, I think that's good. If you hate Aventurine, and you love Luocha, obviously go for Luocha. I think that's sort of a point I want to make here, is that the differences between these characters are ultimately, I think at the moment, still fairly small. Certainly they're all extremely viable. You're going to have zero problem making Luocha viable to like fully 3-star all of MOC. Like it's not even a question of a problem. He's more than up for it. So I think he looks really good. But yeah, I'd like to have him. I think he's cool, but I actually quite enjoying Aventurine in the story. I think he's been quite fun. Definitely a character that's grown on me. It's just an interesting character. So for me, yeah, I'm going for Aventurine. But yeah, it's going to be skipping Luocha, but I do think he's good. And I think if you came in and you said, hey, Nub, I hate follow-up characters, or I'm not really big into follow-up characters. I love destruction characters. Yeah, I'd be saying, okay, you know what? If you want to go for Luocha, that might make a lot of sense for you. So it depends on you, where you're at. But here you go. That's my 2 cents on it as a new player, my perspective. Yeah, let me know what you think about it, especially if you have him, because I mean, I'm not at the end game. I'm only testing him out like a bit with, the support feature. Let me know if you have him, what you think about him. But yeah, that's my take on it. Pretty cool. So yeah, power crept, maybe a little bit, but I mean, I think it's fairly insignificant. Is my view on it. We'll see. Thanks for watching, guys. I'll see you next time. Goodbye.